Um, hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hello, guys. Can you hear Darren?
Hello. I'm talking. This is what it sounds like when I talk.
I think it's good. It sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, let me post out the tweet. I prepared a tweet to go out. All right. Well, Darren, thank you so much for coming to such a humble venue. it's
That's my pleasure. Let me
it's
retweet the tweet right now. I'll do that.
thank you. Thank you.
More tweets. Okay, there we go. All the tweets.
Um uh First off, guys in the chat, I won't be reading your questions because that's just gonna throw me off, and I need to keep my focus. You know how distracted I can get. But yeah, Darren, thank you so much for making time for me. This is yeah, I will never forget this for better or worse. But
Awesome.
but yeah, so I want to I'm just gonna start. Congratulations on the very big success that Hades is, because it must have been well, all of you guys' games were like really well received, but especially like Hades has been so positively received by everybody, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean it's certainly been a really incredible to see the response to Hades. I mean, we've certainly had a lot of love for our previous games, but we haven't seen any reaction exactly like this before, where
Yeah.
it seems to have sort of bubbled up to a level of popularity where it's showing up. Like people will message me, be like, "Oh, my whole feed is just people talking about Hades," and that's it's incredible to see everybody responding so well to it. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it was released December 2018 as an early access game, right?
Yep.
And from there, like the snowball just got rolling and rolling. And like when I was playing it last year in early access,
Hmm.
and it was already a popular game. But when the full release hit in
Hmm.
September, I think I did my
Yeah,
research, I
September.
promise,
Yeah,
but
September. Yeah,
it really like blew up, and all the fan art and stuff. Like people are
yeah.
really loving the game. So
I think it's been exactly 2 months to the day since Hades was released.
well, there you go, guys. Happy
Pretty
2 month
crazy.
anniversary, and
Thank you. Yeah,
it's on the top charts of the Switch
yeah,
rankings right now. It's doing
yep.
really well.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's been incredible to see. I've just kind of blown my mind.
it must have been overwhelming. Like every single game that you bring out, like you never know how well a game is gonna perform, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you can hope and you can have a feeling about it, but it's very different to see the actual result because there's so much that has to line up for something to be a success, and that is totally out of your control as somebody who makes things. Uh, so yeah, I mean, we consider ourselves super lucky to have had the incredible response and sort of the combination of timing
yeah,
and everything else. You know,
yeah.
yeah, it's been awesome to see.
And you're the audio director, also
Yep.
composer for Supergiant games. Um, for somebody that doesn't know a lot about like jobs in the game industry, can you maybe explain like the difference between an audio director and a composer for the game, and what you exactly do?
Yeah. So an audio director at a larger company would be a person who hires people and is sort of in charge of the general direction of all the audio, and so they sort of work with the composer to talk about what kind of music needs the game will have, and work with the sound designers to figure out what the game's, work with the the voice actors and figure that out. But at Supergiant, we are a small company. I'm the only audio employee there, so I'm also the composer. I also do the sound design. I direct the voice actors and do some voice acting myself. So
Yeah,
so it's much more hands-on at Supergiant than it would be, say, at a company with a bigger audio team.
yeah. So would you also be like are you also the casting director and stuff like
Yeah,
for
more or
everybody?
less. Yeah, Greg and I kind of shared the casting duties, I think, more or less. But yeah.
I um I've looked a little bit into your work. Do you also do voice acting outside of Supergiant, or is that just
I
something that?
haven't.
Oh, okay. It's
I
like
haven't. Yeah.
it's something
It,
that just came like naturally as you were working on the games. Like, hey, I can do some voice acting too, or
I mean, I think in general we're on the lookout for what sort of abilities do we have on team that we can bring to the table and use. Just because we're, it's a small team and everybody has to wear a lot of hats sometimes and do different things. And I did some voices on Pyre, and they were in a different language, so it's kind of a different
yeah, yeah,
thing. But when it came time to start figuring out what the characters in Hades were going to sound like, a lot of us on team recorded scratch voiceover for some of the characters, and I did scratch VO for Zagreus and Skelly, and we ended up just kind of liking the way those characters sounded, and we didn't end up getting any reads for those characters that beat what we had. Of course, the team liked it, so we were just like, okay, I guess I'm doing those characters then.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It wasn't a yeah, it wasn't something I sought out necessarily, but I mean, I grew up acting and doing musical theater and stuff as a little kid, and acting kind of all the way through high school, and I hadn't really done much of it since then. But yeah, it's fun to get back into it, and of course I'm doing like dumb voices all the time just to amuse myself. So
No, I think viewers will really relate to that. Wait, that's not English. I
yeah,
do
yeah, it is.
so many stupid things or like impressions all the time. It's really fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun to do things with your voice.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So going all the way back to uh like the beginning of Darren Korb's Supergiant career. Like, how did that start? I read into it because I prepared, but can you tell
Yeah.
the audience maybe a little?
Sort of here. Yeah. So I mean, I grew up with a guy named Amir Rao. We were buddies since we were about 8 years old. We played in bands together and been playing D&D together forever. And, just, we ended up, we grew up, we went to the same elementary and middle school. Then we kind of went to different high schools and we went to different colleges, both in New York. And we've been connected forever. And after college, he got a job at EA LA working on the Command and Conquer series. And I was really stoked for him because we'd grown up playing video games together, and that was like I was super thrilled. And then a few years later, he decided to start a small company with his coworker Gavin Simon, and asked me to do all the audio for this game they were going to make. And just because he thought I could do it, and not because I had any experience doing anything like that, but we'd worked together creatively in the past, and he just sort of, I don't know why.
Came natural to you
But he
guys.
asked me, and yeah, and I said yes, and that's it. That's how it happened.
And was it a big challenge? Like, were you already working on songs before? You're definitely a musician, right? You didn't start
Yeah,
with music going
yeah.
in,
So
right?
to be clear, like I've been doing music forever, but I just hadn't done I hadn't done a lot of composing, and I hadn't done any work on games. Um, and so my primarily I was like a songwriter and audio engineer, producer type person before I started doing game stuff. That was sort of my main focus. Um, and so I interned in a recording studio for a couple of years. I was trying to produce local artists in New York and play the occasional gig as a musician, and trying to write songs, and you know that whole thing, and just trying to have any sort of job in music that I possibly could, basically figure out a way to turn that into a living. Um, and so when this opportunity came up, I was just like, oh, duh, of course. What a wonderful idea.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I didn't have an ambition to work in games, but when the opportunity presented itself, it was like, oh, of course that's what I want to do.
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. So
Were you a gamer like before
yeah,
getting into the games
absolutely.
industry? Yeah. What kind of
It's all my
games?
life.
What kind of
I grew up
games did you play?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up as a little kid. I started playing the NES, and kind of progressed through all the different console generations, and I mean, all the Mario games as a kid, and Marble Madness, and Bionic Commando, and all those things on the NES that are really have a special place in my heart. And then I think the Super NES might have been my favorite system for a long time. I mean, you know, Mario World and all the incredible platforming stuff that happened on the Super NES was really amazing. And there's all sorts of, gosh, just a lot of good ones. Well, so some of my favorite games are like the first couple of Fallout games I really love. They're really near and dear to my heart. The Rock Band series is probably like my favorite series. Like all the just that as a thing.
Yeah, because you
I
still
still
you still play it. I've seen
yeah,
a podcast. You still play
I
it
still play
every weekend or something when
just
you're
about every week. Yeah, I still do it. And
yeah.
that's one of the, actually, as a sort of digression, one of the reasons I'm very excited about getting my hands on one of the new Xboxes is that apparently it loads Rock Band 4 in like,
An instant you can.
in like 30 seconds from main menu of the system to playing a song. And right now it takes like 20 minutes because I have like 2,000 songs or something. So
Really, does it take that long? Oh, I
it
didn't know
takes so long. It
that.
takes so long.
I didn't know that. Oh
Yeah,
man.
it takes forever. So you start it, you go do something else, and you come back.
So you
But
can. That's really great.
but I digress. But yeah, I know. I mean, Rock Band is great, and gosh, I love the first Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game. I really love that game. Sort of special place in my heart, and
I know people like it. I have never played it, but I'm sure it's great.
it's really good. It's available like for every platform now too. You can play it on your phone, and you can play, and it's a really good one.
Shout out to Star Wars, the Old
Yeah,
Republic.
I don't
do
know if anybody's ever heard of that,
I think
but
so. I have a
check it
few
out.
friends that are still like playing it. It's apparently still like a popular game that
Yeah.
people still get into. Do you think you playing all those games, you're like inspired by those games, like the soundtrack and stuff, and you bring that into the music that you do now?
For sure. I mean, I think, uh, all the experiences I've had playing games, I certainly notice when something is implemented a way that I really like, implemented in a way that's appealing to me or interesting, or when there's something happening with the music or audio in particular where I'm impressed by the vibe. I mean, one particular game where I really love, was sort of mind expanding for me from a musical standpoint, was this game called Dungeon Keeper. It came out in the mid '90s for PC, and it's this game where it's like a dungeon. You build a little dungeon. You're the sort of bad guys. Is the tagline for the game is evil is good. And so like you kind of build a little fortress and attract monsters to your dungeon, and eventually the heroes try and storm your dungeon, and if you beat them, you win.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's super fun, and it's tonally really delightful. But the music for that game is so cool because it's kind of half ambient sound design, like creepy dungeony ambient sound design, and then half like weird idiosyncratic like industrial music.
yeah.
It's super cool, and it just kind of seamlessly goes back and forth between kind of sound design and like full on like pretty cool industrial music. And that really kind of opened my mind to like, whoa, this is crazy.
Like
This is a really interesting
like the
thing
the
that's
sound
happening here.
design behind the games are like really interesting too. That's also what you see with Hades, for example. Like the transitions are really well done too.
Oh, awesome.
It's really, yeah. I mean, I can compliment you so much about the whole game. It's such a good it's
Thank you.
such a good game. Um um so if you get a new project, for example, Hades,
Mhm.
how do you start composing for a game like that? Do you get like concept art? Do you talk with the? Of course, you talk with everybody since it's a small
Mhm.
team.
Yeah.
Do you listen to the story, or like how much are you involved with like the
Yep.
story and the gameplay, and like when do you start composing for a game?
So usually, everybody on team kind of begins at the same time, more or less, working on concepts for what their aspect of the game might be like. Jen is sort of concepting art stuff while I'm concepting music stuff, and Greg is sort of fleshing out the story and stuff. And there's prototype design work happening all at the same time. But the stuff, so we all are we've talked about a sort of high level, what is this game going to be like? What's the tone of the game? What's the setting? What should it feel like? And we have those kinds of conversations before this step. And then we all kind of go off and try to execute on that to the best of our ability. And so I start working on music initially. And the way that I do that is a lot of it, I'll ask myself the following questions, which are basically, where does this game take place? What does the music in this place sound like? What kind of instruments would make this music? What kind of music would people make in these places? What kind of songs would people write? And so on and so on. I keep kind of digging into that and figuring out kind of what some elements of the sonic palette are going to be. For Hades, for example, my answer to some of those questions was, I wanted for sure to have these kind of Mediterranean folk instruments present in the soundtrack, and I wanted that to help kind of guide the writing of the music. So I went online and just kind of did a bunch of research about what is a combination of things that I can acquire and that if I did acquire, I could kind of play, because they're guitar shaped more or less, because there's plenty of reeded instruments and stuff that I just wouldn't be able to play that I could have gotten. But so yeah, I went with a few choice guitar shaped Mediterranean things and just started hammering away on those and experimenting. And then once I've sort of developed that component of the sound, I try to develop some other aspects that are going to juxtapose with that in an interesting way. And so at the beginning of Hades, it was initially going to be kind of a little bit different and not have the same kind of tone that it did. It was going to be more of like a labyrinth, Theseus and the Minotaur kind of thing. It was not, it was like a more kind of classically Greek.
Yeah.
And once we shifted away from that, only a couple months into development, I think, we brought in the sort of, okay, so you're the Zagreus, you're son of Hades, you're escaping the underworld. And I was like, okay, well, this is hell, so I got to have some metal. Got to have some. I mean, there's no way around that.
It makes sense, yeah.
So I brought in that sort of hard rock component, and then at that point we discovered that the tone of the game was going to be even though the setting was sort of dark, the tone is kind of lighter than the setting is, and there's humor and there's quirkiness, and so I wanted to incorporate an element of that into the music as well. So I have this sort of theremin-like thing kind of over a lot of the music that I think brings some cheekiness to it. Was sort of the idea.
Yeah. It's definitely not a it's a dark theme, but it's definitely not a it's definitely lighthearted in some sense, which really works for the game, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I had a question to add on this, but I forgot. So if you look at you also compose for certain characters, right? So do you just look at the character and think, okay, this character, Zagreus, is masculine, so I'm gonna do a oh man, I don't know any guitar rock sound under it.
Yeah. It's, for me, it's it's not about, it's not just about how they look. I mean, certainly the look of the character is part of it, but it's really about, for me, it's about the vibe of the character, and part of that you get from their look. And Zagreus, I sort of, in the sort of main theme of the game, No Escape, I mean, that sort of, I see that sort of as Zagreus is, it's both, it works, it's for Zagreus, and then God of the Dead is the sort of Hades version of that. And of course, I believe what's the track called? Death and I is sort of the Hades with no electric guitars. It's a more sort of classical version of that, right? With no rock instruments. So my feeling was that Zagreus is the edgier, sort of younger guy who is looking to do things differently than his father, and so for me, some of the, at least when I was working on it mentally, the rock components represented him a little bit more. And the sort of traditional Mediterranean stuff maybe represented Hades a little bit more. And then there's another character you meet. I don't want to spoil anything when you make it out of the underworld, and who's represented by a different set of instruments that I wanted to sort of match that character and what that character represents and everything. So,
and he did it really well. Cleared the game. I had 60 hours in the game.
Yeah.
And I beat it for the first time after those 60 hours. It's hard from the beginning, but that's what roguelites are like, right? I play a lot of roguelike and roguelites. There's a difference, people. And it's I completely lost my train of thought.
You're saying it was hard in the beginning and you cleared it after 60 runs.
Yeah, I defeated it for the second time yesterday. But if you get to the end, you'll know what he's talking about. That's what I wanted to say. It's I'm not gonna spoil anything. So if you would look to say in an alternate universe, you would compose for a different game, and let's pick a very, very different game, Call of Duty. Do you think you would approach that like a lot different? It's also a very, very big studio, so I guess it will definitely will be different, and you won't have as much say in it. But do you think you would approach it in the same way?
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, I certainly haven't had that kind of experience as a sort of for-hire composer, really. So I don't know. I think in a situation like that, some of what the studio is looking for is more prescribed by the audio director. But I mean, I probably approach any project the way I try to approach any project the way I approach my work on the games that we make, which is, I'd take a look at the tone and the setting, and I'd try to match those things as well as I can, and then I'd try to kind of spin it somehow and turn it on its head so it's not exactly the thing you expect. Because that's what's interesting to me, is trying to take the thing that's expected and include it, but then subvert it somehow.
To not be bland in some way.
Yeah, and to also try to help the player be in a new place that they haven't been before, at least sonically, right? And that helps with the immersion, in my opinion, of putting them in a location, the setting for the game that they haven't been to before. But I guess in a Call of Duty game, depending on which one it is, a lot of them are like, you're in this specific setting in this actual place that was a real place in real time, so it's like a historical fiction sort of thing. So it's a little bit of a different take, a different vibe. So I'm not sure, is the sort of honest answer. I really don't know.
It is a difficult question. Like, it's do you, if you compose a track, like, do you feel like you have to be honest? Do you have to trust in yourself? Because I think if you compose stuff, I don't think you immediately write something like that and then push it out, right? You do a lot of research and think that, oh, this doesn't work, this does work. And do you feel like that you have to like a certain type of acceptance when you compose for music with your own work? It's maybe a little bit vaguely explained or asked for me.
I think I know what you're talking about. I mean, I think part of it is, for me, I definitely do. So the research I do is mostly at the beginning of a project, when I'm researching the type of music I intend to make. And then once I have that sort of the boundaries sort of assessed and laid out, then I can kind of go nuts and just go and make the stuff. And I think it seems like what you're getting at is like, how do you call a piece done? Like,
yeah,
how do you
exactly.
know
Yeah,
when a
that's
piece is
exactly
finished?
what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, for me, it's just, I work on something until I can't think of ways that I would like to change it. I can't think of ways that it would be cooler to me, like things that I would do that would make me like it more, basically. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, I guess it's done,
And then,
And then I sort of push it out the airlock and
Yeah, you can't stay stuck with something forever, right? So
yeah.
yeah.
And honestly, I mean, I have a lot of different stuff that I have to do, and I'm usually pretty busy. So I kind of I give myself a deadline on a piece of music, and after that deadline's over, I try to be moved on by and doing something else because I'm got Hades has over 20,000 lines of voiceover, and it has a lot of
I
different
wanted
sound
to ask
effects and
that.
all
I
sorts
wanted
of
to ask
yeah.
that. There's a lot of
Yeah,
script, I think, in that game.
yeah. There's a lot. Yeah. So I can't spend forever on one particular piece of music just because the rest of the work will pile up and we
Yeah.
just won't get to it.
So if you were to say you were gonna compose on track, how long do you think you'll take, like, making one? That's something I've been
hmm
interested in.
Yeah. So on Hades, I'd give myself a maximum of 2 weeks basically for the most elaborate types of pieces, um, which are like the kind of 6 to 10 minute biome, like pieces that play when you're out fighting through the different levels. We call them biome pieces, is how I refer to them. They're playing for the different biomes, and so yeah, for each one of those, there's it's tricky because there's 3 different sections that have pretty different feels. The first section's fairly straightforward. It's just a sort of a synth pads and a little pulsing bass. It's like a single note. It's like not too crazy, and then there's some percussion. And then the second section is the full arrangement of the piece with some folk instruments, basically. Um, and then the third section is the full arrangement of the piece again, but with totally different instruments. So it's a rock arrangement. And so it's kind of like recording the entire piece twice, more or less.
Yeah.
But I think the part that takes the longest is just fleshing out the piece. Usually the first week is just writing and making sure I have the piece laid out, and then the second week is all the recording and editing and mixing. Sometimes I'll get to the recording in that first week, but
Okay. So going back to Zagreus as a character,
mhm.
um, as an aspiring voice actor, I always wondered, like, how would you find a voice for a character, which is really hard,
Yeah.
in my experience. How did you find your voice for Zagreus? How did you find your voice for Skelly?
Well, a lot of it was conversations that I was having with Greg at the beginning, and we just thought, what what is this character like? How do we want him to come across to players? And what's his deal? And then we looked at inspiration, looked to other media for inspiration, and some of the things that came up were, Tom Hiddleston's Loki in the Avengers movies. We thought was a interesting character, a really compelling take, and he had some of the sort of snark and twinkle in his eye that we were, that thought could translate well for Zag. And there's an actor, Asa Butterfield, who is a really good, talented British actor who's he's on the show Sex Education on Netflix and really good in that, and he's in a bunch of other stuff. And some of his characterizations and the way he speaks and some of that stuff was interesting. So I took some notes there, and and then we just tried it. Um, I tried to do kind of my best synthesis of all that stuff that we'd looked at for Zag, and he changed over time. Um, a little bit, and
There's
sort of
no
as
post processing involved, right?
no,
Yeah.
not on Zag, no, or Skelly actually. Just compression and EQ. That's it. I mean, there's nothing else. There is post processing on several of the characters in the game, but yeah, those two are pretty naked. And for Skelly, there's this voice that I like to do a lot that it's sort of based on, but then he ended up being a higher energy character, so it was that voice. The voice that I'm talking about is like oh, sorry. Let me get back to the thing here. My phone ringing.
No worries.
So
No worries.
uh, so yeah, the voice I'm talking about is like oh, hey guys, how you doing? Like this voice
Yeah.
I would do with my friends. And so it's like an ingredient for Skelly. It's based on this guy that my friends and I had met a long time ago, and we all just do that voice all the time because we find it amusing.
Yeah.
and then but Skelly's higher energy, so it's it has to come up a little bit. Hey, here, So and it's like, well, that's what a skeleton, like
I
this
was.
kind of a skeleton guy would sound like.
Can you say?
um,
I'm so sorry. I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you say boyo or something?
hey, boyo.
Yes. So good. I've been
Sure.
practicing it, but I'm not gonna make you cringe. Did you do any like research beforehand, like in the Greek pantheon? This is a viewer question. I don't know what that means, but it sounds correct.
Yeah, so Greg, the writer, did a lot of research and has been a sort of fan of Greek mythology for a long time, and so absolutely, Greg did tons of research in that specific way. I did different types of research, but not. I didn't do much specific pantheon research. I did when I was writing some of the tunes. I did dig a little bit into like the Orpheus myth, and I dug a little bit into the sort of Zagreus origin story, which we touch on in one of the songs in the game. So and that's sort of the only place that's really covered, is the sort of traditional myth of Zagreus, which is kind of weird and convoluted and
Yeah.
yeah.
Can we talk about one song in particular? It's a
Mm-hmm.
personal favorite. I really, really enjoy Good Riddance. That's such a good song. It's
Thank you.
really 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 good. I've been spamming my viewers sometimes while playing Hades. And yeah, Ashley Barrett, right?
Yeah, Ashley
Yeah.
Barrett. Yep.
Did a really really good job, and I encourage everybody listening to this to listen to it. It is really really good. The rest too, of course, but it's a personal favorite.
Thank you. Glad you like it.
um, so you had your 10th anniversary at Supergiant last year at
Yep.
a concert. You worked
Mm-hmm.
with Austin Wintory, which must have been great. I've been to a panel with him. I think like
Yep.
5 years ago or something. Um, are you guys friends, or did you like just meet because you're like,
Yeah,
hey,
we've
you're a
been.
composer, hey, me too. Let's
That's how we became friends initially. Basically, it was back after Bastion had come out. We started chatting at that point. But yeah, so we've been friends for a while, and when the idea to do something special for the 10th anniversary was being floated around, another person at the studio suggested doing some sort of orchestral concert, and my initial reaction was like, no, like how
yeah
would we do that? And then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, let me ask Austin, see what he has to say, because he, does all sorts of things like that.
yeah
I wouldn't know what it would take and what it would cost and how I keep getting called and how it would uh why are they calling me over and over? It's my parents, by the way.
that's okay, that's okay.
And in what it would cost and how all that works and everything. So um we talked about it and we thought hypothetically, what kind of live ensemble would we put together? What kind of stage size are we talking about? Like, how is this going to logistically work? Um, and then we did all that. We did some research, and then it looked like it was kind of done, and it was kind of dead in the water. Like we couldn't pull it together. And then another opportunity came up like a month or two later, and we're like, oh, okay, this is happening. So we had Austin hooked us up with an arranger that he's worked with before. This guy Brian LaGuardia, who did incredible work um, on the stuff for the concert, and Ashley and I practiced a bunch, and it was like very new. It was like a new kind of thing for us to be
Yeah.
playing with an ensemble. It's usually just her and I when we perform. And yeah, we did that concert at PAX West 2019, and then we did it again at PAX East. And it was a ton of fun. And then in between there, we went and recorded an album of those tunes at Abbey Road in London, which is coming out soon. I mean, it's the pre-release has happened, and yeah, we're just waiting on the manufacturing to be finished of the vinyl. So
Keep
soon.
your eyes out, guys. By the way,
Yeah.
I will link towards the official YouTube video, mind you, of the concert. It's really good. I've watched it today. It's and your kid has a small part in it, which was really
Oh
really
yes.
really adorable. It was really really cute.
Yeah, I did not put him up to that. That
Yeah.
was all him. So.
I think we are now at the live questions portion. So I hope I haven't looked at chat because that's gonna distract me. Let's see. Are there any live questions, guys? Keep it PG-13. Let's not talk about the next games, the other platform releases, because they're gonna announce that when they want to. Let's see. What did you like most about Orphic myths with
Mhm.
Zagreus and Dionysus and all that? Says Helenia.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fast. I mean, something that's interesting about Greek myth in general is that I think those stories illustrate is how malleable it is and how open to interpretation. And there's just a bunch of different versions of a lot of these things. And so that was something that was really fun to explore when I was digging into the Orphic myths about Zagreus and stuff. Uh, so yeah, I thought that was fascinating, and from a standpoint of using that stuff as source material, it's really pretty free because you have a lot of options there. Um, in Hymn to Zagreus specifically, I was trying to actually tell more or less that the Orphic myth as best I could,
Yeah.
in song form, and so it's tricky to, it's like, which details do you choose and how do you convey them and stuff in a way that's somewhat poetic. So um, yeah, it was a bunch of fun to dig into that stuff.
Okay. There's no there's no another question. Let me go into Discord because people ask a lot of questions in Discord too.
Sure.
But can you tell us what is next for you? We obviously can't talk about the fifth game. That's maybe or maybe not coming. Oh, we do have a question here. But can you maybe tell us about what's next for you?
Yeah, honestly, we don't really know at this point. We're still supporting Hades, and we still have some more stuff we need to do. We're working on, getting cross saves up and running, and making sure that's all good for people before we push it live, and whatever future platforms, who knows. I don't really know the timetable on any of that stuff for where it's going, but yeah, we're kind of hopefully going to use this opportunity to take a little bit of a breath and then see what's next.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does the reaction to the game make you feel, and how recognize the work and talent you put into the music, sound, and also Jen's art?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. It's a wonderful feeling, and the response to the game has been so generous and lovely, and people have had really kind things to say about all the different aspects of the game, and the music and the voiceover and all that stuff in particular has been really flattering to hear people's compliments for that stuff, for sure. And one thing that feels really nice and kind of validating is, the having the fully voiced game is something we've never done before, where like every character speaks and they all have voice acting for everything they say. That's new for us, and it felt like a risk, at the beginning of the project.
Yeah.
And to see the response to that be so positive has been really heartening and incredible to see, just because it felt sort of like the riskiest thing that I was doing, in terms on sort of my discipline.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad it worked out, and that people are responding to the characters and people like the acting, and it's been
Just
really cool to
just
see.
just everything. Yeah, everything is just on point. There's a reason why it's getting so many positive reviews, right? It's
Awesome.
really 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 nice.
That's so cool to hear.
When composing for this game, did you ever look back at your past games like Bastion and draw some influences from there as well, or were you like to add on this question for myself, or do you like want to not want try to sound as much as the previous game or something?
Yeah, so I'm not specifically trying to pull from the previous games musically. I'm trying to create a unique musical identity for this game. On the other hand, it's still me making the stuff, and I'm still have my methods of how I like to approach things. So there's going to be, I think, some similarities just because of that. I kind of look at it like, for us as a studio, and also for me personally, I almost look at each of our games as like a different album by the same band,
Yeah.
where you have the same individuals affecting huge portions of this thing, and so it's really the sum of the efforts of these individuals, and much like a band. And now we're just shy of 20 people full time, so it's a little bit bigger. It's more like a big ska band or something. But
Yeah.
but when we started, we were like 7 people, which are that there are bands that are 7 people big that aren't a ska band.
And even bigger
Yeah,
these days.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, I mean, that's sort of how I like to think about that stuff.
um. Hanarad asked, when it comes to recording voice lines, how did you go about making sure the voice actors had the right tone? Were they able to listen to the voice lines of other characters they are interacting with? It all sounds very natural.
I'm super glad to hear it comes across naturally. So basically, there's a couple parts. So the tone of the actors, we had auditions, and the people who kind of sent us the audition that was felt good to us and felt close to what we had imagined for the character, or something that wasn't what we imagined for the character but was impressive and cooler than what we imagined for the character.
Yeah.
And we that so part of that, I think, is the casting, and our cast did a phenomenal job. And so the way the sessions worked is I directed the voiceover sessions, and if a character is responding to something another character is saying, it's just me reading the line for them to respond to in the session. So nobody actually heard the real thing in the game that they're in conversation with. But yeah, I tried to, because I was present for all the parts of it, I tried to make sure that everybody sort of understood what the tone of the thing was supposed to be, and the level of the conversation.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, and the emotion of the thing. And so, yeah, I mean, it was we over time, the process speeds up right at the beginning especially for each new actor or new character. It's slower at the beginning as you're sort of getting your footing and finding the rhythm of how to work together, and finding the specifics of how this character speaks. But once you kind of figure that out, it certainly gets a lot easier, and you can have a little bit more fun with it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I can't answer everything, guys. I'm so sorry. I have one more from Aaron IRL. What was the hardest thing working on Hades for you?
Gosh, I think it's interesting because the hardest thing was probably just the cadence of developing a game in early access and having it be like more of a marathon than we've had in the past, where you're sort of constantly shipping a game every 4 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, and so that was just sort of taxing, but at the same time, that was really beneficial, I think, to the development of the game overall, and it was a lot of fun to work on. So it didn't feel hard, even though it like technically was hard. It didn't feel like a chore. It was always exciting. So, I mean, I think just the sort of relentless development style of the game was probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine definitely with working with such a small team, which is really nice with communication and stuff, but it's also, there's a lot of challenges, right?
And there's not a lot of redundancy on the team, right? Like if I go away for a vacation or something, nobody's making sound effects or music while I'm gone, like there's not somebody else doing that or recording the voiceover. So yeah, just that's just one of the challenges that kind of comes with both the style of development that the way we approach this game, and also the team size and everything. That's just part of the thing.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, maybe we can have this as the final question. More Magical asks, do you have any specific people you look up to or would love to collaborate with on a future project?
Gosh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I certainly have a bunch of musical artists that I really am impressed by and respect a lot. I sort of have like a secret dream of collaborating with Jack Black someday, or Tenacious D.
Can
Just for
hook you up.
fun.
He's a friend of mine. I can hook you up. No worries.
Yeah. and you know, also, I mean, there's a musician who I adore right now named Lewis Cole, who I'm just like, I find to be one of the most impressive, inspiring musicians around. Just so incredible, so talented, and who's it's a combination of incredible virtuosity with like really interesting ideas and a quirky approach to making music, which I really love. And so yeah, that guy's really inspiring. I mean, if I had any sort of opportunity to collaborate with somebody as talented as that guy, that would be cool.
Well,
yeah.
well, guys, I think this is it for this podcast. Darren, I want to thank you so much.
My pleasure.
To again coming to such a humble venue is what I say.
No problem.
I really appreciate it. Guys, this podcast will be up later if you just joined. I'm gonna put it up on YouTube and all the other stuff where people put podcasts on. This was Darren Korb. I will put all the links in Discord and stuff. I'll put the concert too and like everything. Yeah, buy Hades. Buy Hades and all the other games. It's they're really good. Darren, thank you. And I'll speak
Thanks
to you
for having me.
in 1 minute, but I'll close the stream off right now.
All right, sounds good.
All right, bye guys. Thank you.